Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving into how a truly devastating job loss ended up launching an $85 billion global snack empire. We're looking at the incredible story of Lay's potato chips, and let me tell you, it's a wild ride. We are talking sheer hustle, brilliant marketing, and some perfectly timed innovation. It just goes to show that sometimes losing absolutely everything is exactly what you need to build something monumental.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's the Great Depression, 1929. The stock market has just completely crashed, and a massive 24% unemployment rate is sweeping across the nation, wiping out incomes and livelihoods pretty much everywhere. Among those caught right in the crossfire was a 20-year-old named Herman Lay. He had recently dropped out of college, actually walking away from a fully funded athletic scholarship because he was just so eager to get out into the business world. He lands a job at Sunshine Biscuits making cookies and crackers, but thanks to the Depression, he's quickly out of a job. Suddenly, he's totally on his own, realizing he has to build something that would give him true independence.
So how exactly does a fired 20-year-old go from hawking chips out of a Ford Model A in Nashville to creating an absolute global monopoly? I mean, sure, he had a natural entrepreneurial instinct. Even as a kid, his soda stand was so successful he actually had to hire employees to help him run it. But going from a traveling salesman selling snacks out of his trunk in Tennessee to building the most dominant food company in history, well, that requires a closer look at the specific steps he took.
Let's start with part 1, the accidental side hustle. To build this empire, Lay had to jump on some brand new technology. The thing is, potato chips weren't actually a new invention at all. Way back in the 1850s, folks discovered that thinly slicing and baking potatoes created a completely different, crunchier experience than your usual thick chunks or French fries. They called it the Saratoga chip, named after the town in New York where it was first conceived. It was incredibly popular locally, but there was a huge problem holding it back. It was highly perishable, and they usually just sold them loose in barrels. Because of that, they simply couldn't catch on nationwide. They were stuck as this hyper-local delicacy.
But the game completely changed in 1926 with the invention of the wax paper bag. Before this, you couldn't travel with potato chips without them going completely stale almost immediately. The wax paper bag actually sealed in the freshness, which meant chips could finally be a portable snack that lasted for days. Lay, who was working for the Barrett Food Company at the time, recognized the massive potential here. This single technological leap meant he could confidently sell fresh 10-cent bags of chips on the road, while still maintaining the kind of quality you'd expect sitting in a restaurant.
Trusting his gut, his childhood sales instincts, and a decade of food industry experience, Lay decides to gamble entirely on himself. He takes out bank loans, buys a distribution territory from his former employer, and eventually manages to raise $40,000 through a stock sale so he can just buy the entire Barrett Food Company outright. Now, this bold move absolutely terrified his main investor. This was a guy who owned a shop across the street from the factory and had poured his family's entire life savings into Lay's venture. It seemed like an incredibly huge risk, but this massive leap was exactly what set the stage for explosive growth.
Which brings us to Part 2, Engineering the Perfect Snack and a Masterclass in Marketing.
Scaling up to a national level meant they needed some serious product engineering. Lay didn't just sell chips, he literally re-engineered them. Think about it. When you're shipping thousands of bags of chips across the country, a major physical distribution problem is that they just turn into crumbs in the bag. Lay's solution? They became the very first to offer crinkle-cut, ruffled chips. The actual structural design of that ruffle made the chips significantly stronger, meaning they were far less likely to break during transit. It's just a perfect example of using mechanical engineering to solve a logistical nightmare.
But he definitely didn't stop at the physical shape. Lay also quietly pursued and secured a crucial flavor technology from a guy named Joe Spud Murphy, who owned the Irish potato chip manufacturer Tayto. Murphy had actually figured out a patented technique to add seasoning during the cooking process, and more importantly, retain that flavor on a mass production scale. This was completely revolutionary for the time. Lay's secured the exclusive rights for these flavored chips and started mass-producing now legendary flavors like cheese and onion and salt and vinegar. It just catapulted them so far past competitors who were still only selling plain chips.
Now, pairing this perfectly engineered, wonderfully flavored product with a massive advertising push, that was his next stroke of genius. In 1944, Lay's became the very first snack food company to ever advertise on television. They hired the actor who played the Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz to be their spokesperson, and that gave birth to one of the most legendary catchphrases of all time. "Betcha can't eat just one." This phrase,
backed by the sheer power of early television, firmly cemented Lay's in the public mind as America's premier potato chip. Moving on to Part 3, the billion-dollar mergers.
By 1950, Lay's was the market leader, generating what would be about $500 million in today's money. But there was a massive rival looming on the horizon. It is totally fascinating to see how Herman Lay and C.E. Doolin basically built perfectly parallel empires about 900 miles apart. While Lay was dominating with potatoes, Doolin had bought a corn chip recipe from a tiny San Antonio cafe, baked them in his mother's kitchen, and started the Frito Company. The similarities are uncanny, right down to the fact that both men started out selling snacks directly from their Ford cars. Yet Frito had grown into a behemoth and was actually outselling Lay's by 30%. Their interests were absolutely bound to collide.
But hey, instead of waging some brutal corporate war that could have easily destroyed both brands, Lay orchestrated a rapid, aggressive consolidation. In 1961, he maneuvered a deal to merge the two companies together to create Frito-Lay. This formed the very first national American brand for snack foods. And brilliantly, he managed to keep himself in power as the CEO of this brand new entity. It's an incredible timeline of growth, from that first TV ad in 44 to dominating the market in 50 and then this massive merger in 61. But believe it or not, he was looking even higher.
The wildest part is just how casual this next monumental shift was. In 1965, Herman Lay meets with Don Kendall, the CEO of the beverage giant PepsiCo. Pepsi was desperately looking for any edge they could get against Coca-Cola at the time. Lay saw that joining snacks and drinks together would consolidate just an incredible amount of power over the American market. So he literally proposes this multi-billion-dollar merger to create PepsiCo by scribbling the terms on the back of a napkin. Don Kendall accepted, and the entire trajectory of global snacking changed forever.
And that kicks off Part 4, a global snack empire.
That napkin deal provided the immense financial backing they needed for aggressive worldwide expansion. Today, Lay's alone commands an astonishing 41% of the entire potato chip market. And when you factor in their Frito-Lay siblings, like Ruffles and Pringles, these products occupy up to 80% of the total shelf space in your average convenience store. They have effectively cornered the market, squeezing out almost any room for independent competitors to even exist. The sheer scale of what started in the back of a Ford Model A is just almost unbelievable today. PepsiCo's 2021 revenue hit $85.5 billion. Frito-Lay alone employs 55,000 people. And to truly wrap your head around their production volume, they produce enough potatoes every single year to reach the moon and back. It is a straight-up logistical and agricultural marvel.
A huge part of this global takeover strategy is their localized branding. Instead of forcing the name Lay's on everyone everywhere, they seamlessly rename the chips so they resonate culturally in different international markets. So if you're in the UK, you're eating Walkers. In Australia, they're Smiths. Down in Mexico, you'll find them as Sabritas, and over in Egypt, they're Chipsy. This brilliant strategy makes the brand feel like a homegrown, local staple, no matter where in the world you happen to be buying it.
Plus, they continue to dominate by catering intensely to hyperlocal tastes. They currently boast over 200 varieties of chips globally. We're not just talking barbecue and sour cream anymore. We're talking flavors like nori seaweed and baked scallop. They actually employ top restaurant chefs as head flavor researchers to develop these profiles. And, tapping directly into their massive consumer base, they crowdsource wild new flavors from the public, offering million-dollar prizes to contestants who submit the absolute best new ideas.
Herman Lay remained on the executive council at PepsiCo until he passed away in 1982, turning heavily toward philanthropy in his later years. He established the Lay Scholarship, hoping to help another young, entrepreneurial mind create the next global sensation. He's rightly been described as an absolute mastermind of the food industry. So it's worth asking, next time you're standing in a convenience store aisle or tearing open a bag from your pantry, will you remember the fired 20-year-old traveling salesman who started the whole shebang? And more importantly, what underdog story might be hiding in your pantry right now? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.